Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 67 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto. We are in the 25th chapter, titled The Descriptions of the Characteristics of King Puranjan. And we are we're going to start from verse 24, and the section it's about Puranjan meeting a woman in that city. But first of all, let us chant our prayers. Nama Am Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadejatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhunichananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All right. Okay, so here we go, devotees. Verse 24. With the end of her sari, the woman was trying to cover her breasts, which were equally round and well placed side by side. She again and again tried to cover them out of shyness, while she walked exactly like a great elephant. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the two breasts of a woman represent attachment and envy. And the symptoms of attachment and envy are described in Bhagavad Gita 3:34. Indriyasya arte ragadveshan vivastitan tayona vasham agachet tanhiyasya paripantino, which means attraction and repulsion for sense objects are felt by embodied beings, but one should not fall under the control of senses and sense objects, because they're stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. Okay, and then on to the second paragraph. So Prabhupada says, these representatives of attachment and envy are very unfavorable for advancement in spiritual life. One should not be attracted to the breasts of young women. And Srila Prabhupada refers to Shankaracharya, who says, the breasts of women, especially young women, the breasts of women, especially young women, are nothing but a combination of muscles and blood. So one should not be attracted by the illusory energy of raised breasts with nipples. They are agents of Maya, meant to victimize the opposite sex. Yes, so quite a subject, isn't it? Prabhupada says they're equally attractive, therefore they're called samavrito, and the sex impulse remains in an old man's heart to the point of death. The only way to get rid of this is to become advanced in Krishna consciousness, like Yamunacharya, if you remember what he said. Since I've been engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, realizing ever new pleasure in him, whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distaste. So when a person is spiritually advanced, he's no longer attracted to these things. So Prabhupada says the word nirantaro is significant, because even though they're in different locations, the action is the same. We shouldn't distinguish between attachment and envy. Bhagavad Gita 3:37 says they're both products of Rajagun, mode of passion. Kama esha krodha esha, Rajaguna samudbhava. And onto the third paragraph, the word niguhantim, trying to cover, indicates that even if one is tainted by lust, anger, and greed, etc., those things can be transfigured, can be changed by Krishna consciousness. One can use lust for serving Krishna. Just like Prabhupada says, being impelled by lust, an ordinary worker works hard day and night. Similarly, a devotee can work hard day and night to satisfy Krishna. So, just as karmis work hard to satisfy kama, krodha, lust, and anger, a devotee should work in the same way to satisfy Krishna. Anger can be used in Krishna's service when applied to the non-devotee demons. Prabhupada gives the example of Hanuman, who became very angry with Ravana and set fire to Ravana's kingdom. And actually elsewhere Prabhupada mentions Arjuna. He fought in the battle of Kurukshetra, and he was very angry. To fight in some big battle, you have to be very angry. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus kama, lust, can be utilized to satisfy Krishna, and krodha, anger, can be utilized to punish the demons. When both are used for Krishna's service, they lose their material significance and become spiritually important. Right, so on we go to verse 25. Puranjan, the hero, became attracted by the eyebrows and smiling face of the very beautiful girl, and was immediately pierced by the arrows of her lusty desires. When she smiled shyly, she looked very beautiful to Puranjan, who, although a hero, could not refrain from addressing her. Prabhupada makes the point that a hero, a living entity, is a hero in two ways. When he's a victim of Maya, he works as a great hero in the material world, as a great leader, politician, businessman, and so on, working towards the advancement of materialistic civilization. So that's one hero, one type of hero. The other one is by becoming master of the senses, a Goswami, a person who restrains the senses from material engagement, is a great hero. But however great a hero may be in the material world, he can be immediately conquered by the breasts of a woman. So there are many examples like this. Prabhupada gives the example of Anthony with Cleopatra. Then a person we may not have heard of, but he has some fame in India, Baji Rao, in Maharashtrian politics. If I remember correctly, he fell in love with a Muslim woman. Anyway, I can't remember the exact details. And Prabhupada makes the point that previously politicians employed beautiful girls as Vishakanya. They had poison injected into their bodies from the beginning of their lives. So they became immune to the poison, but they were so poisonous that if someone simply kissed them, it would kill that person. So there are many instances in history of heroes being, Prabhupada says, curbed by women. So being part and parcel of Krishna, certainly the living entity is a great hero, but due to his own weakness, he becomes attracted to the material features. Prabhupada quotes, well, it's the second paragraph, Prabhupada quotes Prema Vivarta, Jagdananda Pandit, Krishna Bahir Mukhahana, Bhogavanchakare, Nikatasta Maya Tare, Japatiya Dare. And which is saying that when the living entity wants to enjoy material nature, he's immediately victimized by the material energy. Yeah. Because the living entity, none of us were forced to come into the material world. We made our choice being attracted by beautiful women. So every living entity has the freedom to act, freedom to be attracted to material nature, or to stand as a hero, Goswami, and resist that attraction. It's just a question of the living entity being attracted or not. So a person who can keep himself steady and resist the attraction of material nature is definitely a hero and deserves to be called Goswami. Yeah, so anyway, the living entity can take either of two positions in this world, servant of the senses or master of the senses. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, by becoming a servant of the senses, one becomes a great material hero. And by becoming master of the senses, he becomes a Goswami, or a spiritual hero. Verse 26, my dear lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you're coming from, who you are and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. Right, so Prabhupada explains, first verse in Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jigyasa, that now we've reached the human form of life, we should inquire into Brahman. So we should question. We should question things. In lower life forms, the intelligence doesn't go beyond facilitating eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And that the animals, they're always busy. They're always busy trying to find something to eat or a place to sleep, defending or engaging in sex life. But in the human form, we should be intelligent enough to ask certain questions. Prabhupada lists out the questions, or some of the questions at least. A person should ask what he is, why he's come to this world, what his duty is. Should ask who is the supreme controller, what's the difference between matter and the living entity, etc. There are many questions, actually. And the intelligent person should inquire about the supreme source of everything, Atato Brahma Jigyasa, should inquire about his spiritual identity. So one who's simply in bodily consciousness is no better than an animal, even though in a human form. And again, Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 15:15. Krishna says he's in everyone's heart. and is giving knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So in the animal form, the living entity completely forgets his relationship with Krishna. This is forgetfulness, a poanam. But in the human form, consciousness is more developed. So there's a chance to understand one's relationship with God. So just as Puranjan is asking this girl, where's she from? What's her business? In the human form, we should use intelligence to answer these questions we just listed out: what we are, why we're in this world, what our duty is, who's the supreme controller, etc. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, these are inquiries about Atma Tattva, self-realization. The conclusion is that unless a person is inquisitive about self-realization, he is nothing but an animal. Verse 27, my dear lotus-eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? So, Prabhupada explains, the 10 strong servants of the mind are the 5 working senses, 5 knowledge-gathering senses. They work under the mind. Yeah, so the mind and the 10 senses combine to become 11 strong bodyguards. And the hundreds of women under the senses are addressed as lalana. Yeah, the mind works under the intelligence, and under the mind are the 10 senses, and under the 10 senses are innumerable desires. But they all depend on the vital life force represented by the snake. So as long as the vital force is there, the mind works, and under it the senses work, and the senses give rise to many material desires. So actually the living entity Puranjan is embarrassed by so much paraphernalia. Simply constitutes different sources of anxiety. But one who's surrendered to Krishna, leaves everything up to him, is freed from such anxieties. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore Prahlad advises a person who is taken to the materialistic way of life, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and leave aside all his so-called responsibilities, and in this way become free from all anxieties. Verse 28, my dear beautiful girl, you are exactly like the goddess of fortune, or the wife of Lord Shiva, or the goddess of learning, the wife of Lord Brahma. Although you must be one of them, I see that you're loitering in this forest. Indeed, you're as silent as the great sages. Is it that you're searching after your own husband? Whoever your husband may be, simply by understanding that you are so faithful to him, he will come to possess all opulences. I think you must be the goddess of fortune, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Therefore I'm asking you, where you have thrown that lotus. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada explains, everyone thinks his intelligence is perfect. And people use their intelligence to worship different deities. Prabhupada mentions Uma, wife of Lord Shiva. People worship her to get a beautiful wife. They worship Saraswati to become learned like Brahma. They worship Lakshmi so they can become as opulent as Lord Vishnu. So Puranjan, in his bewildered state, he doesn't know how to use his intelligence, and he makes these inquiries. Actually, intelligence should be used in Krishna's service. As soon as you do that, the goddess of fortune becomes favorable towards you. She never remains without a husband. So when you worship him, she'll be there and you'll get her favor. But don't do like Ravana did. He stole her, the goddess of fortune, and tried to worship her alone. Because the thing is, she will not stay long without a husband. Therefore, another of her names is Chanchala, or restless. So it's clear here, Puranjan is representing our intelligence while talking to the girl. He appreciates her shyness and is becoming more and more attracted to it. So, of course, what he's doing internally, he's thinking of becoming a husband. So therefore he asked whether she was thinking of her husband, trying, as they would say, fishing her, trying to find out, does she have a husband or not? If she does, that's one thing, but he's really hoping she doesn't, because he would really like to become her husband. So it's an example of bhoga ichcha, the desire for enjoyment. So a person attracted like this becomes conditioned in the material world. And one not attracted gets liberation. He appreciated her beauty as if she's the goddess of fortune, but at the same time, he was careful to understand that the goddess of fortune can't be enjoyed by anyone other than Lord Vishnu. So, but since he doubted she was the goddess of fortune, he inquired about her lotus flower, which she did not have, because the material world is also the goddess of fortune, because the material energy is under the direction of Lord Vishnu. So there is, second paragraph, much shorter. Prabhupada makes the point that the material world cannot be enjoyed by any living entity. If one wants to do that, he immediately becomes a demon, like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, or Kamsa. And because Ravana wanted to enjoy the goddess of fortune, he was vanquished with his family wealth and opulence. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, one can, however, enjoy that Maya bestowed upon the living entity by Lord Vishnu, the satisfaction of one's senses and desires, means enjoying Maya, not the goddess of fortune. Verse 29, O greatly fortunate one, it appears that you are none of the women I've mentioned, because I see that your feet are touching the ground. But if you're some woman of this planet, you can, like the goddess of fortune, who accompanied by Lord Vishnu increases the beauty of the Vaikuntha planets, so you can also increase the beauty of this city by associating with me. You should understand that I'm a great hero and a very powerful king on this planet. Yes, okay, step by step, he's getting into it more. So Prabhupada says, difference between the demoniac mentality and devotional mentality is that the devotees know the goddess of fortune cannot be enjoyed by any living entity. ordinary living entity. This is called Krishna consciousness. But still, everyone wants to become happy by imitating the prosperity of Narayan. So here Puranjan says that the girl seems ordinary, but because he's attracted to her, he requests that she become as happy as the goddess of fortune by associating with him. Thus he introduces himself as a great king, so she may accept him as her husband and be happy like the goddess of fortune. Prabhupada goes on to make the point that to desire to enjoy the material world as a subordinate of the Lord is godly. But the demons want to enjoy this world without considering the Lord. This is the difference between a demon and a demigod. So the second paragraph, Prabhupada says the word bhuvi sprik mentioned in this verse is very significant. And the thing is that when the demigods sometimes come to earth, they don't touch the ground. They sort of hover just above the ground. And Puranjan saw that this woman, her feet were touching the ground. So therefore she's not from the heavenly planets or from the transcendental planets. So Prabhupada makes the point that every woman in this world wants a husband to be influential, rich, powerful. So therefore Puranjan, in order just to seduce her, he told her that he was like that. He was influential, he was rich, he was powerful. So of course here everyone wants to enjoy a beautiful member of the opposite sex. A living entity with such desires is called Purusha, enjoyer. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, superficially it appears that the woman is the enjoyed and the man is the enjoyer. But internally, everyone is an enjoyer. Consequently, everything in this material world is called Maya. Verse 30. Certainly your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful, I ask you to be merciful upon me. Prabhupada explains everyone has lusty desires. And as soon as one is agitated by the movement of a beautiful woman's eyebrows, Cupid within throws arrows at the heart. So therefore one becomes quickly conquered by the eyebrows of a beautiful woman. And when one is agitated by lusty desires, the senses become attracted by all kinds of enjoyable things, like, as we read, sound, touch, form, smell, and taste. So these things bring one under the control of a woman, and in this way the conditional life of a living entity begins. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, conditional life means being under the control of a woman. And certainly the living entity is always at the mercy of a woman or a man. Thus living entities live in bondage to one another. And thus they continue this conditional material life illusioned by Maya. Verse 31, my dear girl, your face is so beautiful that your nice eyebrows and eyes Oh, sorry. My dear girl, your face is so beautiful with your nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, very sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you are so covered with shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. So here Srila Prabhupada does say, such speech is typical of a living entity who's attracted by the opposite sex. It's called bewilderment by becoming conditioned by material nature. So when you're attracted by the beauty of the material nature, you become eager to enjoy. And Puranjan illustrates this elaborately. So in conditional life, the living entity is attracted by the face, eyebrows, eyes, voice, or anything. Everything becomes attractive. So when a man or a woman is attracted by the opposite sex, it doesn't matter if they're beautiful or not. The lover sees everything beautiful in the face of the beloved and becomes attracted, and in this way falls down into the material world. Prabhupada again quotes Bhagavad Gita 7:27. I'll just read the translation. O scion of Bharat, Arjuna, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. So this condition is called avidya, or ignorance. Opposed to this avidya is real knowledge. The Ishopanishad distinguishes between vidya and avidya. By avidya, one becomes conditioned, and by vidya, one becomes liberated. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Puranjan admits herein that he is attracted by avidya. Now he wishes to see the complete feature of avidya, and so requests the girl to raise her head so that he can see her face to face. He thus wishes to see the various features that make avidya attractive. 32. Narada Muni continued, my dear king, when Puranjan became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. So anyway, Prabhupada makes a statement which some devotees find to be quite controversial. By this incident, we understand that when a man is aggressive and begins to woo a woman, she becomes attracted. This process is described in Bhagavatam 5:5-8. Pumsastri amitini bhavam etam. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So, Prabhupada makes the point, the sex impulse is the platform of material engagement. And this conditional life is the cause of forgetfulness of spiritual life. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in this way, a living entity's original Krishna consciousness becomes covered or converted into material consciousness. Thus one engages in the business of sense gratification. So devotees, we go on to section 6, which is from verse 33 to verse 36. And it's called The Woman Addresses Puranjan. Right, so let's read through the verses. Verse 33. The girl said, O best of human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. In other words, I don't know who my father is, my parents. I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. 34. O great hero, we only know that we're existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. Verse 35. My dear gentlemen, all these men and women with me are known as my friends, and the snake, who always remains awake, protects the city even during my sleeping hours. So much I know. I do not know anything beyond this. 36. O killer of the enemy, you have somehow or other come here. This is certainly great fortune for me. I wish all auspicious things for you. You have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best in all respects to fulfill your desires. So let's go through the verses again with their purports. 33 to 36. 33, the girl said, O best of human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. Who is my father, who are my parents? I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. So Prabhupada makes the point that in general, the living entity is ignorant of his origin. That's us, devotees. If you were to ask me, other than Jivera Swaruphoya Krishnera Nichitas, I don't know my origin. Was I born here or there? Who were my parents? Who was my mother? Who was my father? Yeah, it's the living entity doesn't know why the material world is created. What is the source of it? Prabhupada says no one knows the answers to these questions, and this is called ignorance. So, of course, scientists, important scientists, are trying to figure out the origin of life. I was reading about a week ago, or something like that scientists in America, somehow they managed to get a, not a satellite, but they managed to get an asteroid, or part of an asteroid, one of these things which go flying through space. So they got a piece, it's like this. And they said, it will help us to understand the origin of life on this planet. My Lord. Yeah. But so anyway, what they're doing is just ignorance. The scientists do research, but they just find some chemicals, no real answers. So Brahma Jigyasa, the word Brahma Jigyasa is used to indicate inquisitiveness, to know the source. But no philosopher or scientist knows the source, nor do they know why we're struggling here or where we're going to go later. So the scientists usually think we're here by accident, and as soon as our bodies die, we will be zero. So actually, such scientists and philosophers, they're impersonalists and voidists. But here the girl is explaining the living entity's actual position. She can't tell her father's name because she doesn't know. She doesn't know why she's here. This is the position of the living entity in the material world. And the scientists, etc., are no better. No better. There are many facilities here, but we're so foolish. We don't ask who has made the world like it is, or how is everything functioning in order. They say it's happening by chance, and after death will be zero. But they think this place, this planet, will automatically remain. Verse 34. O great hero, we only know that we are existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. So Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, this lack of Krishna consciousness is called ignorance. Bhagavatam 555 explains, as long as one doesn't inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person's engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karamatmaka, colored with fruit of activity. So as long as the mind's impure, consciousness is unclear. And as long as one is absorbed in fruit of activity, he has to accept a material body. Sure. So, right. Prabhupada continues, everyone here is born in ignorance. And in that state of ignorance, we create nationalism, philanthropy. We create countries. Sometimes we sort of configure countries and so on. But the basic principle behind all of this is ignorance. So what's the value of all of this advancement? Unless someone comes to Krishna consciousness, all his activities are defeated. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, this human form of life is especially meant to dissipate ignorance. But without understanding how to dissipate ignorance, people are planning and building many things. After death, however, all of this is finished. Verse 35, my dear gentleman, all these men and women with me are known as my friends, and the snake, who always remains awake, protects the city even during my sleeping hours. So much I know. I do not know anything beyond this. So Puranjans inquired about the 11 men and their wives, their many wives, and the snake. And the woman's given a brief description. And she tells him she doesn't know anything more about them. So, yeah, but the snake, well, we've already said snake is the vital force. It's always awake. Even when the body's tired, even when we're unconscious, the life force is awake. Therefore, we dream when we sleep. At the time of death, the life force leaves the body, goes to another body, and stays there with the soul. So the wives, many, many wives, are the desires. We noted that earlier. Prabhupada says, even during our sleeping hours, we can understand by virtue of our breathing process that the snake lives by eating the air that passes within this body. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, even when the gross body is asleep, the vital force remains active and alive to protect the body. Thus the snake is described as living and eating air to keep the body fit for life. Verse 36, O killer of the enemy, you have somehow or other come here. This is certainly great fortune for me. I wish all auspicious things for you. You have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best in all respects to fulfill your desires. So, okay, Prabhupada explains, we've all come here for sense gratification, and our intelligence, represented by the woman, gives us direction for that sense gratification, as much as it may be possible. But actually the intelligence comes from the supersoul, and he gives facility to the living entity who has come to this material world. And Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 41, one of the great verses from Bhagavad Gita. Vyavasayat makabudhir ekeha kurinandana bahushaka hyanantas cha buddhayo vyavasayana. Those who are on the spiritual path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So now the second paragraph. When a devotee is advancing towards spiritual realization, his only aim is to serve the Lord, and he doesn't care for anything else. So Puranjan represents the ordinary living entity. A woman is his intelligence. So combined, the living entity enjoys the senses. Intelligence gives all paraphernalia for his enjoyment. So as soon as we're in the human form, as soon as he's in the human form, he's trapped by family tradition, nationality, customs, etc. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, these are all supplied by the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus the living entity under the bodily conception of life utilizes his intelligence to his best capacity in order to satisfy the senses. Okay, so now, next section 7, verse 37 to verse 42, she invites Puranjan into her city. We'll read the verses first. 37. My dear Lord, I have just arranged a city of 9 gates for you, so that you can have all kinds of sense gratification. You can live here for 100 years, and everything for your sense gratification will be supplied. Well, she continues, how can I expect to unite with others who are neither conversant about sex, nor capable of knowing how to enjoy life while living or after death? Such foolish persons are like animals, because they do not know the process of sense enjoyment in this life and after death. 39. The woman continued, in this material world, a householder's life brings all kinds of happiness. In religion, economic development, sense gratification, and the begetting of children, sons and grandsons. After that, one may desire liberation as well as material reputation. The householder can appreciate the results of sacrifices, which enable him to gain promotion to superior planetary systems. All this material happiness is practically unknown to the transcendentalists. They cannot even imagine such happiness. Verse 40, the woman continued, according to authorities, the householder life is pleasing not only to oneself but to all the forefathers, demigods, great sages, saintly persons, and everyone else. A householder life is thus beneficial. 41. O my dear hero, who in this world will not accept a husband like you? You are so famous, so magnanimous, so beautiful, and so easily gotten. Oh, Krishna, how's that? Okay, verse 42. O mighty armed, who in this world will not be attracted by your arms, which are just like the bodies of serpents? Actually, you relieve the distress of husbandless women like us by your attractive smile and your aggressive mercy. We think that you're traveling on the surface of the earth just to benefit us only. Okay, so we'll go back, and we may not be able to finish the entire section, but at least let's do some of it. So it's from verse 37 to verse 42, and the woman, invites Puranjan into her city. 37. My dear Lord, I've just arranged the city of 9 gates for you, so that you can have all kinds of sense gratification. You may live here for 100 years, and everything for your sense gratification will be supplied. Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, Dharmartakama mokshanam dharlam samprapti hetava. The wife is the cause of all kinds of success in religion, economic development, sense gratification, and ultimately liberation. Salvation. When one accepts a wife, it's understood he is being helped in his path to liberation. In the beginning of life, one is a brahmachari, then he's allowed to marry a suitable girl. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, if one is thoroughly trained in household life, he finds all facilities for human life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Everything is there if it is executed according to regulative principles. 38. How can I, this is the woman again, how can I expect to unite with others who are neither conversant about sex nor capable of knowing how to enjoy life while living or after death? Such foolish persons are like animals because they do not know the process of sense enjoyment in this life and after death. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport makes the point that there's so many species, and therefore there's so many living conditions. In the lower grades, like plants and trees, there's no system for sexual intercourse. In higher levels, birds and bees, there is, to some degree. But the animals, the insects, don't know how to enjoy it. So, but in the human form, there is full knowledge how to enjoy it. So there are even philosophers who give directions how to enjoy life. There's even a science called Karma Shastra, karma meaning lust, which is the science of sex life. In the human life, there's Varnashram with different divisions, but the only sex life is in the Grihastha ashram. Not for brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and definitely not for sannyasis. So the karamis, the real sort of down-to-earth, low-level karamis, don't practice brahmacharya, vanaprastha, or sannyas life. They are just interested in grihastha life. So in other words, the humans are very materially inclined. Actually, all living entities are very materially inclined. And they prefer grihastha life because there's a concession for sex. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the karamis think the other statuses of life are worse than animal life, for animal life also has for animals also have sex, whereas the brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi completely give up sex. The karamis therefore abhor these orders of spiritual life. So let us finish here for the time being, and we will continue tomorrow from verse 39. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.